So we start from defining what the app is, and the app is like a meaningful way to put together the conductors of drivers of cars and the passengers for taxis. And that's what Uber allows us to do. And moreover, it allows us to create new possibilities of travel and of movement, which before were not available to the public, or at least were not available in the same fastest way. Later, we need to discuss about the fact that they don't have any driver themselves, so they're just people that are willing to work for them, and they don't own any taxi. Like any of the facilities owned by Uber is only like headquarters or public spaces, but not directly the cars or stuff like that. And then also, what is important is in every location where they're working, they don't own any car or on any driver is working directly for them, but they actually have people that work directly with the drivers and help them to define everything around their career and their life. And they try to define people not as simple drivers, but actually as entrepreneurs who can develop their career through a Uber, being a Uber driver. And then, of course, what was very important for the people was the fact that it was actually safer as a mean of transportation, because like in countries like Mexico, you can always see the plate and who's driving, what's the car, so you kind of feel safer. And then, like in the short history of the company, we start everything from this guy who's called Kalanic. He was born in 1976 and he studied at UCLA in Los Angeles. He had a lot of intelligence, so he actually dropped school and he started to make his own startup. He lost money on it, and he made a second one. He sold it for $20 million, and he started to make Uber because he had the time to make it and the money to make it. And the project idea came to him and a friend when they were like in vacation in the winter in Paris, and yeah, they didn't know like how to take a taxi because they were all full. So they said, "Fuck, we need to create an app where people can just call a Uber, and it can arrive." So they made it, and in like 3 years they developed Uber, UberX, and Uber Pool. UberX is like when you can take a very fast car, and Uber Pool is like when you pay less, but you can share your thing with other people as well. And then I'm gonna talk about the traditional taxi industry with Ale.
No, can you okay, so basically the Uber market hurt the taxi industry because before this, taxists and local organizations would spend a lot of money charging for licenses for the taxists to drive to ensure that the people who were offering public transportation were completely safe. And the public opposed to Uber because they said that this was an irresponsible way of traveling because they were basically offering public transport without needing to go through any regulations or licenses. And the MIT economics professor David, he thinks that this industry is characterized by higher prices and bad quality service, which lacks responsibility, but it was the right moment to enter this because the entire world was very discontent. So the entire world was discontent with the taxi industry, so Uber came in at just the right moment, and that's why Uber became quickly fast growing and it became a multi-million-dollar company.
And the way to make it is through a dynamic tariff. So basically the objective was to make a service that was as fast as possible to take people over, and also that was as cheap as possible. So what they tried to do is create an algorithm which develops different prices for peak hours or like when there is a big event, and so like the service is more required, and therefore being there more request, also the prices lift up, which although brought a lot of problems to and a lot of discussion against the brand because for example in 2014 there has been a scandal in Sydney where people had to pay 4 or 5 times more for each ride because there were too many people who were getting kidnapped, and so Uber was increasing prices because anybody was trying to use Uber rather than just walking, and later on although they had to pay back the people because people were complaining too much and they said like, yo, we cannot pay so much, it's out of the word. And then we passed to the God's vision.
And so the Uber industry would learn from the data received from the algorithms. This would create the accumulative effect, and they were used to have the right number of cars at the right time, and Uber would use this method of data to know where to place the cars at what time for the people to have a more efficient trip and get more efficiently to their destination.
And also they were using all this data to create new developments for the app, but people were not so happy about it. So there's actually this famous senator from the US, Al Franken, who asked Uber what they were trying to do with the people's privacy data. And what did they do, Ale?
With the people's privacy data.
Yeah, with the senator. Franken here. Yeah, Uber started to use like some more guidelines.
They started developing guidelines and including them in a manual for where the new Uber location would be started. So before being able to start Uber in a new city, a guideline and a manual would have to be read and agreed to the terms and conditions by the driver. And for Uber to be safe and reliable, Uber promised to look deeper into the antecedents of drivers and inspection of vehicles, and policies and insurance were implemented, especially those conducting an UberX. And Uber, since it was already a big company, it hired lawyers to review policies and practices in regards of privacy and data.
And finally, talking about product innovation, we have to complement Uber Garage, which is a new idea to a new tool used to create new ideas inside a company. Like for example, in the case of Chicago, where they started to develop a new kind of Uber app, where when you pick up a taxi, you can choose whether it's a Uber or a taxi that you want, and all through the Uber app, because they get the same kind of amount of money basically on commission. So for them, it's not really a big change, but it's actually a way in which they can cooperate with the other companies that are already in the urban system and the sphere of taxi. And other product innovations has been, for example, they're using self-driving cars, like in Texas, Arizona, and they built a partnership just yesterday for $500 million with Toyota. And that's mostly it for Uber. Thank you, guys.